Hello, my name is Kaze, and welcome to another Right Brain Tutorials video. See what I did there? Because this is not really a tutorial, this is an opinion piece, that's right. So first of all, thank you for your patience. It's been a long time since I posted, and the reason why is because I've been working on this massive project for a big client that was Microsoft, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it, and I really didn't have time to do much of anything else. But if you happen to catch the live streaming event with all of their new Surface laptops and all the cool new stuff that Microsoft introduced, then you also got to catch a little bit of my work in there. So at any rate, I am back. I want to get back into doing tutorials, but I thought I would ease myself a little bit into it. I thought it would be kind of fun to go through a bunch of my personal wish list. Now, this is just my personal wish list, okay? And it differs from a lot of other users, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I thought I would share some of the things that have been a little bit bugging me about Houdini that I hope get addressed into the Houdini 19 release. So without further ado, let's take a look. All right, so here we are. This is Houdini 18.5 still, not in 19, of course. But as I mentioned, these are just my own personal wishes for an upcoming update of Houdini, maybe 19, maybe 19.5, maybe 20, or maybe even never. I'm just going to present these in no particular order, just because of the fact that I just kind of went through and whatever popped into my head that I thought might be a nice improvement to have, I jotted it down, and I'm just going to share it with you guys, and hopefully you find this interesting. And please let me know in the comments below what you think would be a cool update or improvement in Houdini in an upcoming version. Okay, so one of the first things that I'd love to see is more solvers at the SOP level. Let me explain a little bit. So the base level of Houdini is known as the OBJ level, object level, okay? And if we have a geo node and we just dive into it, now we are into the SOP level, the surface operator level. SideFX started to bring some solvers at the SOP level. So before, solvers are their own subnetwork that you have to kind of like dive into and adjust all your parameters in there in the subnetwork. But now you can use some of the solvers at the SOP level. Let me show you. For instance, let's type Pyro, and we have here a bunch of like pre-configured kind of things. Let's start with maybe the bonfire. Just gonna pull up the bonfire, and automatically it creates a bunch of nodes for us. And if I hit play, we'll see that we have a bit of a bonfire going into our viewport. So this is all happening at the SOP level in the sense that we don't have any TOPS subnetworks. And this is what I'm talking about right here, this Pyro solver, which is actually available to us right here at the SOP level. And if we double click on it, there's nothing in it, right? Because all of the parameters are actually available right here on this page, on this parameter page. And the cool thing about this is we can double click and we can actually instance, for instance, like some gas turbulence or some other types of disturbances, and wire them right into the output, and then they will affect the solver up here. And that's only if you need to, because sometimes you don't really need to, and sometimes you're just happy with just these controls that are available to you. So SideFX did this with the Pyro, has done this with Vellum Solver, of course, which I think was the first one to actually kind of be a solver here at the SOP level. And I just wish that SideFX continues down this trend. Things like, for instance, like the particles. The POP solver is still something that you have to kind of configure, a subnetwork that you have to dive into and adjust things in there. And I think a POP solver here at the SOP level would be a lot of fun. And maybe we have some fluid solvers that would be kind of nice to have here at the SOP level. Now, some people might think, well, yeah, but these are really simplified versions, and it's still better to actually kind of have your TOPS network properly. And I would agree with you. However, in many cases, you don't really need to go into that level of detail. Sometimes you just need to do something really simple, and this is going to do the trick just fine. Okay, so I don't know how many of you guys maybe downloaded this demo file from SideFX. This is like the market scene from the USD, or Unified Scene Description, Universal Scene Description, I think that's what it is. I think this came from 17.5, so it's been around for a while. And you probably saw like the presentation that SideFX did on USD and Solaris, and you thought to yourself, oh my God, this is gonna be so awesome. This is the future, blah, 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 blah. I can't wait to jump into it. And then all of a sudden you jump into it and you start kind of seeing like some really, really unusual sort of nodes. And then there's this stuff with these things that mean something and stuff. And it's exciting, but it's also incredibly, incredibly confusing, at least for me, to get into. And apparently I'm not the only person who feels that way. There's a lot of people that feel that USD in Houdini has a lot of promise, but it's a little bit kind of difficult. Like, you kind of really need to wrap your head around it. So my wish for Houdini 19 is that they continue to improve the workflow and try to make some of this stuff a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more artistic, a little bit more right-brained way of approaching this context right here. So I hope that SideFX continues to improve the USD in Houdini and the way it's implemented, and hopefully, you know, those guys are really smart and hopefully they can figure out a way that's a lot more intuitive and a lot simpler for the rest of us. Okay, so related to USD and Solaris, we have Karma. Okay, so Karma is a brand new rendering engine, and it's really, really cool, and it's really fast. And once again, it has a lot of promise, and I just hope that SideFX continues to work on implementing Karma. And my number one wish for Karma is that we can use it outside of the USD context, outside of the Solaris stage. I don't know if this is possible. I don't know if this is something that's hard-coded and it's too difficult to, you know, to bring out into the regular, you know, render operators of Houdini that we know and love. And I just wish that I had access to Karma outside of the, you know, USD stage context. All right, so let's talk about simplification of more context. And the next one that I kind of hope for SideFX to continue to make more user-friendly, more right-brained, so to speak, is TOPS. So TOPS is PDG. This is like a way that you can basically multitask, multi-process different things, and it's really cool, especially if you want to have like a lot of variations of things. And I looked at it and I just like, yeah, like this is so way above my pay grade. And once again, I see a lot of potential with this, and I know that studios and a lot of the boutique visual effects houses are doing some really amazing things using PDG and using TOPS. I just hope that there's maybe an even, further way of simplifying it for guys like me, and I would love to be able to use it more. And as I said, I kind of start getting into TOPS, and I become very, very kind of confused by it. And apparently I'm not the only one that feels this way, because I've been reading a lot of other people kind of express the same type of frustration with TOPS and PDG. So SideFX, if you're listening, please make it a little bit easier for us. All right, so moving right along, my next wish is for Houdini to show some love to CHOPS. CHOPS stands for channel operators, okay? And if you've seen some of my other tutorials, I love channel operators. For instance, we have a simple sphere here, and let's say that I just want to animate it so it kind of bobs up and down, kind of like frantically. I can just right click here, I can go under motion effects, I can add some noise, okay? And now if I hit play, our sphere is gonna go crazy because it's got all this kind of noise affecting its Y position. So this is really cool. It's a great way of adding animation without necessarily creating keyframes. And it can be very, very powerful. It's just that I think that CHOPS has been a little bit neglected in recent versions of Houdini. I think it needs to be brought up to speed. It may be some additional optimization so it kind of runs that much faster and smoother. Anyway, this is really cool, and I hope that SideFX gives CHOPS a little bit of love in Houdini 19, or if not 19, 19.5. Continuing on the thread of animation, let's say that we don't want to use CHOPS, but we just want to use traditional keyframe animation. So let's say I have my sphere here. I'm going to put like a keyframe right here. I'm just going to option click, and I'm going to go a little bit further and say, I don't know, go like 10 meters to the left, okay? And I hit play, and now my sphere moves. And if I want to fine tune this animation, I can just shift click on here and I have this nice little graph, these like so, and now I can kind of make some adjustments to the curve and so on and so forth. I mean, this is pretty straightforward from other DCC packages, and yet I always kind of feel like it kind of fights me in some way, shape, or form. I feel that it's not as intuitive to use. I think that there's some room for improvement. I mean, this obviously works. There's a lot of people doing some amazing animation in Houdini, but once again, I think that the whole timeline keyframe animation and ability to implement and fine-tune keyframe animation a little bit more intuitively and easily is, you know, a welcome improvement in Houdini. So I hope this is coming for Houdini 19. Some love to the keyframing and timeline controls. All right, so my next wish for Houdini 19 is that side effects continues a bit of a trend that I'm seeing where they're adding more functionality on a per node basis. Let me explain this a little bit better. For instance, the group node, in my opinion, has evolved quite nicely. Here, let me just kind of pull up the group node, and you'll see a little bit what I mean. So the group node used to be pretty straightforward. You just kind of select some polygons and tell it to group it, and off you go. But what side effects has been adding little bit by little bit is some cool ways of grouping things without necessarily having to select individual polygons. You know, keep in bounding regions, for instance, or keep by normals, or include by edges, and you know, and you can kind of fine tune all this stuff. And I think this is an example of side effects starting to add more functionality on a single node, so that before you might have been able to do all of those things, except maybe you needed like multiple nodes, and now in certain cases, just a single group node will allow you to group and select specifically the polygons or points or what have you that you need. Another example, for instance, is here's the copy to points, right? And I mean, yeah, this is great. I mean, this does exactly what it advertises. I just kind of copied a bunch of boxes onto this kind of asteroidal sphere that I made. But once again, it would be kind of nice. Why not have a way of randomizing the size and position? I don't know, like, you know, rotation. Why not? I mean, you can do all those with wrangle nodes. You can, you know, use mops. But you know, maybe copy to points could have a little randomization feature as well. I mean, you know, to me, simpler is better, right? Even, you know, something like copy and transform. You know, why not add like some randomization, you know, factors for rotation, scale, position, what have you. You know, like, to me, those are all things that come in really, really handy. And yes, you can do it, but you know, all of a sudden you start building your node complexity, and maybe side effects could choose to add some of these frequently used things into those single nodes to just kind of make everything a little bit cleaner and simpler. Now, as some of you guys might know, back in November of 2020, Epic Games actually invested a great deal of money into side effects. And this has been a really, really great development because there's a lot of cohesion between the two companies. And some of you guys that are into game development probably know just how well integrated Houdini has become into Unreal Engine. And this is all really, really amazing kind of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. So my wish is maybe for some of that technology from Unreal Engine to come back towards Houdini, because it would be really, really cool. Some of you guys know that there's been some new developments with Unreal Engine, with Nanite, which allows for millions and millions of polygons to be on screen and displayed in real time, and Lumen, which is effectively a real-time global illumination technology. And some of you guys might also know that I am, of course, a big fan of Blender and Eevee. And I think this is such a great tool to be able to kind of have some real-time feedback of what's going on in the scene. I mean, you can see here like glowing lights, there's volumetrics. I mean, kind of see what you're doing before you have to hit that render button. And I would love to see some of this Unreal Engine technology actually come to the Houdini viewport. I am under no illusions that this is happening for Houdini 19. It's maybe even like a bit of a wishful thinking for Houdini 20, who knows? But I certainly hope that behind the scenes, the conversation has started between Epic Games and Side Effects to bring some of that Unreal technology to the Houdini viewport. All right, this video is starting to get a little too long, so I'm gonna go through the following list really quick. Those are some smaller things that I hope that Side Effects is bringing to us in Houdini 19. So I'll start from give us access to QuickTime files, MP4 video files that are not image sequences. I understand that Houdini comes from a long line of very, very high-end studio professional kind of workflows, and image sequences tend to be favorite for those types of operations. However, I would love to just be able to kind of use, QuickTime, movie files or MP4 or H.264 or like animated textures or anything like that. I think would be awesome. I would also love to see a progress bar somewhere. I mean, I know that like when I'm doing like some heavy computations that I will get like on the bottom of my screen, it will start kind of saying what it's doing, but it's not giving me any idea of roughly how long that's going to take, and I understand that sometimes that's very difficult for Houdini itself to know, but I would just love some sort of progress bar, because sometimes I'm not even sure if Houdini just crashed and it's just kind of frozen and I need to restart it, or if it's actually still computing stuff. So I would love for Side Effects to implement some sort of progress bar when Houdini is doing some heavy-duty calculations, just to give me an idea that something is going on. Here's a bit of an unusual thing, but I'm gonna go way back when to where I was a Cinema 4D user. And one of the things I really liked about Cinema 4D here, I'm just gonna show you, is that you can have a little preview of, just by clicking on the Cinema 4D file, it can actually tell you what is inside this file, okay? And this comes in really, really handy when you're not really quite sure what file you're looking for. You can just kind of click on a file in the Finder and you can kind of see a little preview of what kind of geometry is in there. And I found this to be so useful. And I would love if the HIP files from Houdini also had this kind of preview built in. My understanding is that Blender is actually going to have previews into the file, on the Finder built in. And I think this is a great, great way of keeping your work organized and finding things that you might be, maybe worked on, years ago and you're not really quite sure what you named them and so on and so forth. Anyway, I think this would be really, really cool. Okay, so this one is very specific to Mac users, but please, 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 please make Houdini compatible with ARM CPUs, with the new M1 or M1X or M2 or whatever Apple is going to be releasing. These are really exciting CPUs. They are powerful, they are fast, and I would love to see a native version of Houdini that supports ARM CPU. I think this is technology that's coming regardless of your platform. I mean, right now, Apple is heavily invested into it, but I am sure that, Microsoft is looking into it, Intel, AMD, all those other companies are exploring ARM CPUs, and I think that they're going to be a thing of the future. So the sooner the better, and if Side Effects can give some Mac users a little bit of love and support for those M1 and, as I said, M1X, M2, whatever is coming from Apple, I think that would be fantastic. Now, I am a big fan of Axiom. I don't know if you guys have used it. Matt Puchala, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Matt. But Axiom is a really, really cool add-on for Houdini that allows you to basically compute, pyro simulations using your GPU. This is really fantastic technology, and Matt is an incredibly smart guy. And I just think that Side Effects needs to build this technology right into Houdini. I mean, this is, after all, what a software developer does. Finds way to optimize the code and finds way of taking advantage of all the technology that's available to the users to make everything faster. And what Matt has done is really, really impressive, but it really should be part of Houdini proper. So I really hope that Houdini 19 is going to have OpenCL optimization or some other way of taking advantage of GPUs. It already does, but not quite as well as Axiom does. And I think that they need to talk to Matt, and they need to figure out what Matt has figured out and implement it right into Houdini 19. I think that would be a really cool thing to have. All right, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. As I said, I know nothing about what's actually coming. We should be finding out in a matter of a couple of weeks at most, when they usually have some sort of preview video or teaser coming up. So at that point, we'll know just how wrong I was, and I'm sure that I completely missed the boat on most of these things. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.